Hello lovely viewers and welcome to Sad Reality TV. My name is Melvis and this is my channel. If this is your first time visiting my channel, you are welcome. And just so you know, I bring to you weekly uploads on true crime stories. If that is something that is of interest to you, then you are in the right channel because that is all I do here. Why not hit the subscription button as a way to be notified and a free way to support your girl so that each time I upload a new video, you will be notified. That said and done, let me not take too much of your time. Let's dive into today's story. Today we shall be discussing the tragic case of Hadiza Lantana Oboh, the female pilot that was murdered by her own domestic staff. We shall be traveling to Lagos, Nigeria to discuss the tragic case of Hadiza Lantana Oboh. Stay tuned with me as we shall be getting the details of this tragic story. Hadiza Oboh was the first and only female pilot of the Nigerian Airways in the 1990s. Little is known of her early life, but as of the time of her death, Hadiza Oboh was a single lady in her late 30s who lived alone in her residence in Ikoyi, a community in the then capital of Nigeria, Lagos. In 1984, Hadiza Oboh began her career as a flight officer aboard a Nigerian Airways Boeing 737, and by 1989 she was already a well-established pilot and remained a superstar of aviation throughout the 1990s. She has always been a point of reference and source of pride for all women associations in Nigeria and Africa. Because Hadiza had no kids and no family, was close relatives were living with her then, Hadiza had to employ domestic staff to share her home. Especially looking at the nature of her job, she had to be traveling. A pilot travels really a lot, so Hadiza needed help so that when she's gone for weeks or even the month, there should be people taking care of her prestigious residence. It is said that she had a very beautiful house in the neighborhood of Ikoyi, Lagos. This is when Hadiza decided to employ the services of Abdullahi, who was the gardener, the gate man, and the cleaner, like generally keeping the house in order while Hadiza was away. But because of some kind of misconduct, Hadiza fired Abdullah. When Hadiza had fired Abdullahi, she decided to hire the services of Peter. He was actually a motor electrician, but he had to pick up the duties of Abdullahi. So he was going to work as a gate man, the gardener, and probably the cleaner. Few days before Hadiza traveled, let's say her last trip, Peter walked up to Hadiza Oboh and told her that he had an emergency in the village, that he had to travel suddenly to the village. Hadiza was frustrated. She really needed someone around her house. It is said that this woman had eyes for the finest things. She really had the best of everything, like the best of furniture at the time, the best of all kind of electrical appliances, all gadgets, and her house was really up to standard. She really didn't want to leave all those things like without anyone to take proper care of. And so frustrated, she decided to re-employ Abdullahi to cover up until Peter returns from the village. That decision was actually a big mistake. It was a deadly decision. Abdullahi came back and resumed duty while Peter went to the village. Peter came back when Hadiza Oboh was still on her trip. She had not yet come back. This is when Abdullahi began nursing his evil plans. He came up with a sinister idea that to Peter, he walked up to Peter and convinced him that they should kill their madam. Peter, without thinking of the consequences of their action, accepted immediately to the plan. It is said that these staffs were pushed to this limit because of Hadiza was so simple. She used to leave all her staff in every corner of her house. They were so into her room everywhere, so they knew what she had. Hadiza was a white traveler. This woman was a pilot, meaning she had the finest of everything from every country. She could afford everything. So sometimes when Hadiza comes back from her trip, when Abdullahim or Peter or whosoever, or Toro, who was a driver, had to take her back into the room, they will see foreign currencies, designers bags and shoes, fine clothing, gold chains, bracelets, handbags, and a lot of valuables that these domestic staffs became so into it that the only way they knew they could lay their hands on that was to get rid of Hadiza. Of course, she was so busy. She was a very busy woman. She hardly had friends visiting, family members rarely came, and she was not married and she had no kids. So it was very easy for them. Peter accepted to the plan and they all stayed waiting for Hadiza to make her last trip back home. On the 8th of February 1998, Hadiza had returned from her trip so exhausted, and Abdullahim helped her carry her stuff into her bedroom. Then again, Abdullahim saw a lot. She had come back with a lot, including foreign currency. They had planned, they already had their plot before now. So everything was already so planned. Hadiza decided to rest for a while. She said that she rested for a couple of hours, and about 8 p.m. that day, she made her way into her kitchen to find something to eat after a long, exhausting trip. While she was in the kitchen preparing her food, you will begin to think she was obviously preparing her last meal. But it's a pity she didn't get to eat her last meal. She really didn't have her last meal, because even before she could finish cooking, Abdullahim was the first to make his way into the kitchen, pounced on Hadiza with a noose or a rope, holding it tight to her throat in an attempt to strangle her, while Peter and Otoro held her down so she couldn't struggle hard, and Abdullahim held the noose so strong to that in less than a couple of minutes they had finished strangulating Hadiza. I can't imagine the thoughts going through her mind that the same people she spent her hard-earned money to protect her and her life and her property are the same people actually violently taking away her life from her at her prime. It was really a tragic situation. When all three had confirmed that Hadiza had actually gone cold, they dragged her body, went outside, and there was a septic tank. We commonly call it in Africa soakaway. They opened it, they break it open, dumped her body inside, and got a bag of cement and cemented it back, and went back into the house and became the bosses. For the days following, the days after the murder, people kept visiting. We are in the 90s. There were no mobile phones, so we mostly had landlines and fixed phones. So each time people visited, they will go to the gate. When someone knocks, they will go to the gate and tell the person in pidgin, I quote, "Our madam don't travel. We don't know when she go come back." When relative comes, they give the same flimsy excuse. When colleagues come, same. And people began to wonder why Hadiza would just suddenly disappear. Her colleagues were looking for her. Her relatives were looking for her. Well, it wasn't so strange that she could go that long, but it was really strange that no one knows her whereabouts. Peter moved from the boys' quarter and went into the main house and began living there. Meanwhile, Abdullahim, as his own compensation, had taken Hadiza's car and began using it as a taxi. He left the house and he was using it as a taxi, making a lot of cash with it. While Peter and Otoro concentrated they took it upon themselves to be selling Hadiza's expensive furnitures, household appliances, and all what the ACs, everything, all what that they could sell, they began selling, and they had virtually emptied the house. They soon ran out of luck because In the compound next to Adidas was a policeman on duty. He was really still on active service, and he had once gone there to ask for Adidas, and they gave the same flimsy excuse. But he kept seeing them carrying things out of the compound. People kept bringing cars and transporting her stuffs out. So initially he thought it was an act of theft. Maybe she had gone for one of her long trips and they have come to they are stealing her things, so that by the time she come back there will be nothing. She alerted this policeman alerted his colleagues, and they decided to come to the house and find out what was going on. When they forced into their way into the house, Peter was around, Otoro was around, who was a driver, and there was equally one last buyer that came to finish the last stock of things that were left. His name was Osama Dennis. The police met all of them, and actually they were under arrest. But when the police made their way into the house, they made the shocking discovery. Aziza's house was totally empty, and the only thing that was left in her house, in a big house that she owned, the only thing that was left was a large portrait of her hanging on her wall that was already covered in dust and cobwebs. The ACs were gone, the furnitures were gone, everything was gone. Nothing was left in the kitchen except the pot of soup that Hadiza was cooking the day they murdered her. The pot of soup was still on the electric cooker. These three were arrested and taken to the Ikoyi prison, police station. Why there was a total manhunt. There was actually a manhunt for Abdullahim, and he was eventually caught as well. Since there was no body, there was really no murder case, so they were held on the charges of theft and looting. They had looted Adidas stuff. So, but something kept telling them that Adiza is she has gone for so long, it's really difficult. Even her colleagues have begun looking for her, so it wasn't abnormal, but the murder charge couldn't be placed because there was no body. The police got so frustrated. They tried and tried and tried, and there was really nothing. They decided to transfer this case to the state CID. When the state CID took over this case, a group of intelligent inspectors equally went there, and after a long search and searching for clues, one of the detectives spotted the safety tank. He realized that the cement, that there is a part of the septic tank that actually has this freshly used cement. Not it's very different from maybe the other one was, let's say, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but there was a portion of it that was it is less than a year. It is a couple of months ago or weeks ago. It was so still very fresh, and he ordered his men to break the septic tank. That is when the decomposing body of Hadiza Lantana Oboh was retrieved from the septic tank. And when Peter was confronted with this truth in the police station, while all 4 men were in jail and the police were waiting for the court orders to tell them when to send the case to court, they received the shocking news of their lives. The magistrate of the High Court had released all 4 men on bail. He released them on bail, and when the public got to know about this with Adidas family, friends, and colleagues, there was a public outcry. It almost came to a rioting. Why? They knew that they had gotten the 4 suspects. We are only calling them suspects because we are that is how things are done until proven guilty. But we know they committed this crime. They had confessed to the crime. So it was just for the court to take them to court and persecute them and sentence them, right? But they granted them bail, and you would think that was the height of incompetency, but the sad reality of this case was that the people that came to bail these 4 suspects used fake names, fake identification papers, and even fake addresses. This was only discovered when they were released. They vanished into thin air. They disappeared, and due to the public outcry, the magistrate decided that they should be rearrested and brought back to the jail so they could take the case to court. That is when it was discovered that they were nowhere to be found. The shorties were inexistent. The address they had given was not existing. The names they had put there were not their names. Nothing. That's to it is really, really sad. It breaks my heart to know that those 4 people got away with murder. To date, Hadiza's case is still open. She has not gotten justice for what her domestic staffs did to her because of the negligence of the judicial system. They got the criminals and let them out there just without any struggle. They just went away with murder. It is over 20 years now, and it's like the case has even gone cold and no one is talking about it. So Hadiza might never get justice for all what they did to her. It is probably going to end that way. I don't know. I just pray she find peace in her grave or in her death, because really the system failed her. This woman was a national treasure. She was a nation's pride. She was Africa's pride. I can't think of any female pilot in the 90s. Maybe they were there, but how many of them were there? The nation really did fail this woman, and that, my lovely viewers, is a sad story of Hadiza Lantana Oboh. Thank you all. Hoping to see you around in my next video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Thank you.